are just like completely sculpted.
Yeah.
Paul Cole?
Right.
Yeah.
He's got a BPM that when he's playing is regularly like 180,
180,
yeah.
easily. Yeah.
Right. All right, guys, we're going to get this show rocking and rolling. Quentin Beckham is in the house. Lee Elberson is in the house. Real estate, if you like real estate, this is the show for you. But frankly, with Lee and Quentin in the house, if you like Central Virginia trends and storylines and things we're seeing, this is going to be a fantastic 90 minutes. Quentin Beckham is on the front lines of business locally from a real estate standpoint, a closing standpoint, a titlement standpoint, from an agent standpoint. He's just got his hands in a lot of different fires behind the scenes. Elberson as well has got his hands in a lot of fires behind the scenes. So here's the show for you. If you want to know about Charlottesville and Central Virginia comings and goings, put in the feed. We'll relay it live on air. Judah, we can start this program when you're ready. I see the newsroom at the local TV station down the street watching us right now. J-Dubs, let's rock.
Quiet on the set.
Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love Seville Network on a show today presented by Keller Williams Alliance. KWA, baby. Get ready to see the godfather of KWA today on Real Talk with Keith Smith. Lee Elberson also in the house. The show is dynamic. You, the viewer and listener, can join us in the discussion and shape it by offering comments and perspective. Judah Wickower, props to you, my friend. It's Friday. It's payday. It's beautiful.
It's payday.
He loves payday. It's my favorite day. Lee Elberson, we'll get him in the mix, the CEO of Claiborne, one of the partners of 8 Hats. Quentin Beckham, when I introduce you, if I had to introduce you professionally, I'd be here for 10 minutes. This is how I'm going to introduce you. You're just a cool guy, an all-around A-plus guy, because the titles professionally are long and plentiful, my friend.
It also rules out all the people that help me with that stuff. Like, it makes it sound like it's about me, and it's really more about them.
I like his approach.
It's a great leadership, man.
I know.
Just talk about the people that help you. That's
That's why QB is the QB.
That's why he's QB.
That's why he's QB. All right, gentlemen, this is my favorite part about having you on the show is I get to talk less and I get to adapt to you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go looks before
beauty?
Stylish attire. So I'm going to start with Quentin Beckham. Looks before stylish attire over here, Lee Elberson. I'm giving him a zing over here.
Thank you.
Quentin Beckham, you get to go anywhere you want on any topic.
Outside of my generic affinity for rainbows, I just want to point out that you guys mostly see him in a suit. This is more the real Lee.
I would agree with that. I agree with that.
Colorful, over the top.
You know what I mean by that? Approachable, likable, easy to talk to, incredibly intelligent, but when you're interacting with Lee, you just like, this is just a guy I want to belly up to a bar with. Just a good guy. That's what QB means by that.
And when he says belly up to a bar, he means that's probably where you're going to find Lee if you're just out and about. It will be in a bar.
I did help manage a bar crawl on Saturday. So
put that in perspective, shall we? Or shall we not?
Yeah, sure. I helped my good friend and a friend of the show, Scott Williams from Camp for Real, is starting an effort he's calling Celebrate Seville, which is a variety of different ventures, and one of them was a 90s themed bar crawl. We started at Cardinal Hall, went to Vitae, and then ended at Botanical, and really we were trying to get people together, not really just to drink, but really just to enjoy each other and play some good music, and we did that. We had kids celebrating prom join in with us. We had, I think they were probably a couple in their 60s that followed us for several stops and were dancing, having a good time, and that's really what it was about. People from all walks of life just celebrating the good parts of Seville. We know there's a lot of things we need to work on, but we're trying to celebrate some of the things that make Seville so great.
Scott Williams, I love that. I would love to highlight that at any time on this network, my friend. You're a true ambassador of Central Virginia. Quentin and Lee, what has tickled your fancy or what has intrigued you of late? I mean, the first quarter's behind us. We had Justin Ritter on the show on Wednesday. He's a closing attorney for businesses, so he helps like startups and small businesses come to market, lease negotiations, contract negotiations, buyouts, etc. He says some of his clients, best time ever, crushing it. Other clients, they're literally doing like the bankruptcy selling of assets here. So it seems like some are crushing. It seems like others are like, what's going on? Show us yours on that topic.
I mean, the term adapt or die, I think, really resonated with a lot of businesses during COVID. And I think maybe we're starting to see that now. I mean, certainly the federal government was trying to help stimulate growth during the pandemic. Some of those efforts were successful. Many of them failed miserably, as we saw from a lot of the PPP funding scandal. But yeah, I think now you've seen this, Jerry. I see more businesses for sale through your network than I've ever seen. And just in talking to businesses, I think the pandemic has really changed how people view, what their worth is as a business owner. And I know that we had to adapt a lot of our policies and how we do business at Claiborne. And, a lot of that was sort of scaling back and thinking, you know what, maybe we don't want to grow nationwide. Maybe we want to just be the best tutoring company in Central Virginia. That seems to be a scale that we're happy with. Outside of that, it's really difficult to hire. We were all, the three of us were talking about that ahead of time, and I think that's a big part of what small businesses are struggling with. QB?
I think we started talking about this in the pandemic. We talked a lot about coming out of the pandemic, we'd see a K-shaped recovery. And so I think you're seeing this play out in small business. And so there are services that we spent 2 years being at home and buying homes so that we could stay at home and really changing how we socialize and the things that we do and that we invest money in. And so I think you're just seeing that K-shaped recovery continue to play out where different retails and office work and stuff has just shifted, and small business and the market in total hasn't quite figured out where people are yet and how to bring stuff back to their doorstep. And it used to be we went consistently and constantly out to where the services were, and that has changed in terms of the percentage. I love going out, and if you look at the number of times I'm out in a month now versus before, it hasn't recovered. It's not the same. Some of that is because there's fewer options, or those options are more crowded, which I'm happy for them that they are. But I think we're going to see this continue to play out for a while now.
And I wonder if the cat's out of the bag and it'll never really, I mean, you can't change that, and now it'll never really recover to pre-pandemic. And we shouldn't expect that it should. This is what the adaptation should include.
And if you look back historically, it's not big rises that accelerate change, it's big drops. So whether it's economics or social change or whatnot, it's usually a big drop that accelerates change as opposed to a big rise. And so I think we're coming out on the tail end of that. We're facing a recession in the last half of the year. It's probably already started.
Yeah.
And
100%. 100%.
And there's just a national stage and a local stage that is new to most of the world and most of the people that are within 5 miles of us. And so I think we're still seeing that change accelerate as people find their new niche.
Help me understand this. I love you guys because you have your hands, like I said, in a lot of stuff. This was the Q1 report. You were the former president of CAR, all right? We got $86.3 million in sales volume. We're lower for Q1 this year versus last year. How do we characterize the health here? Is this healthy, this market? And what we saw last year and the previous year, just this COVID anomaly? Like, is this the normal market, what's happening now, Quentin? 200 less units sold year over year?
Yes. More about prices than units. So if you look at in the first quarter of this year versus last year, prices in the city of Charlottesville the median price is down 8%. And in the county of Albemarle, first quarter this year versus first quarter last year, the median price is down 4%. The median price across all markets, when you weigh in Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa, Nelson, is
it's up, right?
It's about even.
Okay.
It's up a little bit. Let's call it
a couple percent or something.
Couple percent.
Okay.
It's up a couple percent, but it's about even. And so what we're seeing is a correction. If you trend the housing market over 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, the sustainable gain is between 2 and 3%. And every time we pop over 3%, it has a peak and it drops back down and comes back down to the 3% trend line. And that's what you're seeing happening. You know, in some ways, we had a bigger jump in Charlottesville and Albemarle County in prices, and now we're seeing the bigger decline, bringing us back to normal. Median across the country is 1.7% down, and this is the first time prices have dropped in since, I want to say 2016, maybe earlier than that. It's been a long time since median price points have come down.
Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like to always look at things in Charlottesville and try to understand if it's a global trend. And so I was in Louisiana a few weeks ago visiting my mom and my sister, and we were looking at houses for my mom to move into. And while the housing prices are definitely much cheaper, brand new 3-bedroom, 2,200 square foot houses you can get there for $210,000. I remember thinking, goodness gracious, that is so cheap. And the realtor was like, this is pretty expensive actually. She was like, we have low inventory and high interest rates. She was like, this, we have a housing crisis in Lafayette. And I'm thinking, this seems like this could be a global trend. And she told me that, you know, the housing affordability nationwide has basically been a problem since the 80s. Quentin, can you put that into perspective? Is that true?
It's been a problem since the 80s, but it really accelerated as we led up to the crash. We've underbuilt homes for a long time, and that margin has done nothing but grow.
Real quick question. When you say underbuilt, it just hasn't kept up with population growth, right? We haven't built
Right.
enough houses for
Right.
the population growth. Okay.
I mean, depending on who you talk to, we're what, 3 to 5 million units nationwide under inventory?
Nationwide.
Yeah.
And we're probably a good 60 to 100,000 in Carr and its surrounding footprint.
That's a boatload. You know why that's a boatload? We had 45 days ago, UVA say to us, and I'll get to the comments here. 45 days ago, UVA said to us that the Biotech Institute, the new one, 2,000 to 3,000 new people coming to this area. 6-figure jobs, 24 to 36 months. So we're under inventoried and we have jobs coming. I want you to put in perspective how that could potentially impact classroom, academic performance, drive, achievement, everything in that space and spectrum.
Yeah, well, it's let's see how to paint this in a good light. It's going to change the demographic because what you're really doing is you're injecting resource-rich students into the classroom, which is going to further exacerbate the achievement gap. Most likely, the types of clients who are going to come in at really high-paying jobs are going to opt to put their students in a new community in an independent school. They're not going to roll the dice in public school. I actually know, won't disclose the names, I know a couple of individuals who work at independent schools who are now going to opt to put their children into the public schools, either Charlottesville or Albemarle. So I think that as a nationwide average, our public schools are actually doing better than nationwide. Just as a local community, we've seen Albemarle and Charlottesville decline in terms of their performance year over year. And so I think somebody coming new to the community might hear that and think, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to take my chances. So I don't think it'll change it as much as you think. If they do decide to put their students in the public school, it's going to make it more difficult for under-resourced families to perform in the public school setting.
How much of that do you think is a temporary after effect of the pandemic?
A lot. He would know the best. But I mean,
and that's why I'm asking it with a question mark. I'm just curious, like, I have no intention of raising any more children, in part because I'm too old.
You're,
and it's so hard.
Oh my gosh.
It's so hard.
I mean,
it's
birth
the hardest
rates,
thing I've ever
birth
done.
rates are down, right?
It's the hardest thing
Yeah.
I've ever done by far. It's not even close. I mean, put like launching a business in perspective. This is like 1,000x harder. And then do the second one. He's got 2 kids. He knows exactly what.
Well, it's the same reason I don't have pets.
So
because
hard.
I had 2 daughters. I've done my part for the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do any more.
Boy, I really hope your daughters aren't watching.
His nephew routinely watches when Quentin Beckham's on the show. What's his name? Is it Michael?
Michael.
Yeah, he routinely watches. The fact that I know that is crazy. Blake Hawthorne, his boy is watching. Is he
Yeah.
in Cali right now?
Yeah, Blake's in probably in Sacramento. Yeah.
He says there's absolutely no inventory. 44% less available inventory nationally due to a multitude of factors.
Blake's wife is a realtor, and so he deals with this.
We have, from what I can tell,
And yet, our inventory has doubled year over year. Quarter to quarter, our inventory has practically doubled here in the local area.
from what I can tell, you have 4 LOs watching, loan officers, on the program. Okay. I see 2 home inspectors and 2 appraisers watching. A handful of KWA agents watching the program right now.
I pay them.
Are we, okay, I'm choosing my words carefully here. Okay.
Actually.
Because we're all in the supply chain. I'm certainly on the supply chain we call real estate. Okay. Where are we at here? How do you characterize what's happening? Are we fragile right now? Is this fragile?
Ask a better question.
Is this economic?
I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, real estate, I would say UVA we know is number 1 from a driver of the economy in Central Virginia, 300,000 person market. UVA is number 1. We know it's about $6 billion from the Weldon Cooper study on the defense sector. Defense sector is $1.2 billion. I would freaking love to know a study of what CAR does, because I think you're right there with the defense sector with the $1.2 billion yearly impact. Here's a stat from CAR. $86 million less in sales volume quarter over quarter, last quarter versus this quarter. I want to characterize or ask you this. How do you characterize the real estate economy here in Central Virginia? Is it fragile? Does it have momentum, tailwinds, or headwinds? How do you look at it?
I think it's correcting. There's nothing about, I actually am applauding a lot of our quarter over quarter information. So as low as you might feel the inventory is, it's still improving. As terrible as you might feel the prices are, they're getting better. And one of the big issues with real estate accelerating is that it creates a logjam. The narrower and deeper the river gets, the faster it flows, the more likely it is to drag things along and clog itself up. And that's what we've been experiencing for the last 2 years. And that narrow, deep bandwidth made housing way more inaccessible. As we see things start to broaden out and slow down, you have more opportunity for accessibility, because now people that couldn't sell their home 2 years ago have an opportunity to sell their home because now they have a choice of where to go. And you're going to continue to see the inventory become larger. It's still too low. Like, a change of 1 year is not going to make up for the 20 years we've underbuilt homes. We have more permits for new housing than we've ever seen, and 43% of those permits are for multifamily, townhomes and multifamily housing.
You read the report. You did your homework, dude.
So this is really, really good. The linchpin in a lot of this still lies with the localities and the municipal governments and how quickly they let that come to fruition and how easy they make it.
Here's an interesting, I want you to jump in here. Jamie Turner is on the advisory council at Woodbury Forest.
Okay.
He's watching now. He's got a comment specifically for you based on something that you said. Quentin. If we have wealth sprinting to Central Virginia to live with affluence and resources, it's a 300,000 person market. We know people with bags of money are coming here. Is that not good for your business? Is that not good for your business? Is that not good for Woodbury Forest? Is that not good for Botanical? You mentioned Botanical.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not good for Scotty Williams? Is that not good for small businesses that need new customers? Here's what he says, and then I'll get out of your way, because you're ready to go. I can tell. He says, I'm interested in Mr. Elberson's take on the disparities between men and women when it comes to career and educational successes. And he says, we're struggling with this at Woodbury, and multiple people are saying the affluence that's coming into this area is creating competition in the classroom that they did not anticipate with their youngster.
All right. So first comment is injecting injecting more wealth into an urban setting good for local businesses? Yes. I think as a community, we look at affordable housing and gentrification and making sure that we don't displace some of the workers in the community. And I think it's almost certainly bad for that. It's already bad. As Quentin said, this is a several decade long problem. There is not a single thing we could do in the course of a year to fix the entire problem. Now, we can start to course correct, I think, and try to make things better, but if it's been happening for 30 years, there's nothing we can do now. So, yeah, I think it's definitely good for my business. If more people are doing tutoring and test prep, that is probably a good measure of how people feel about the economy. Tutoring is a discretionary expense, right? If people are spending on that, they probably either feel good about the economy or they're immune from economic downturns. I guess there's certainly some individuals that would be good for. Inside of the classroom, students with more resources are always going to do better. We talk about this all the time. How do you bridge the achievement gap? How do you make a test that takes resources out of this? I think that's impossible. A family with resources is always going to do better. If I tell you, hey, Jerry, let's say I give you $20 million, what are you going to do? You're going to dump a heavy portion of that into your kids, making sure that they have as many opportunities as possible, right?
Well, I don't mind even saying this, and I'll throw it back to you. Our son is a rising kindergartner, and this summer we're fortunate in that once a week for 45 minutes, he's going to work with a third grade teacher who, I'm not going to say who it is, retired from private school teaching and now runs a tutoring business where she's charging $75 an hour to work with kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and third graders. And all she does is do that.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to do teaching anymore. I want to do $75 an hour and work with these kids. He's going to do it once a week.
And as your kids get older, if I said, okay, well, we're not going to do standardized testing anymore, are you gonna just put less resources? Are you going to go out and buy a new car? Or are you just going to find other ways to resource your kid?
Of course.
So I think that it's going to be more competitive in the classroom, and from a capitalistic mindset, that's a good thing, right? Great. Then the system will equilibrate, and the students who are supposed to perform better will perform better. But research has shown that the more disparity that you have in resources in a classroom, the harder it is to make progress, because the teacher is trying to teach to within one standard deviation, and the farther that's spread, the more content and the more difficult it is for them.
Because on either end, somebody's either bored or left behind.
Yeah. So it makes it much more difficult, especially at a place like, Woodbury Forest. You'd think, wow, all these families have resources, but that's not the case. Woodbury Forest offers scholarships, and parents think Woodbury Forest is a great school. Let's spend all of our discretionary income to send our kids there. And some billionaires may say, we'll send it. I like the campus. It's a beautiful campus. It really is.
It is a beautiful campus.
Looks like a college campus.
Yeah. You see helicopters landing at Woodbury from time to time, dropping students off legitimately.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
So I think that was a long-winded answer to say, yes, it's good for the economy, good for tutoring business, probably not great for classroom settings, either public school or independent
So I'm going to push
school.
back on your economy sentence a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think as you talk about disparity in resources, disparity in economic stuff also has a problem. So Amazon just opened a fulfillment center over the mountain.
Yep.
Fishersville, I believe.
Fishersville.
Yeah.
200 jobs to start, leading up to 5. Hershey and Fluvanna is still trying to hire people. And we do have these mainstays of economic flow with UVA and government contractors and military and INJIC and that sort of thing. Those only create the potential for growth. They don't necessarily create growth, because no matter how much money you make, I buy expensive cars, but it's still only one car from one dealer in town. I have a house, I buy one mattress, and I buy 2 pillows, and 3 pairs of jeans will do me. if
you
you
frequent
really,
a lot of establishments, you go to restaurants, you spend a lot of time.
I do, but it's still only me. It's still only me. And what's true nationally is also true here, in that if you want to have a thriving economy, both local and chains and everybody else, you need a strong middle class. Because what you need is a volume, right? So when we don't have volume, we don't have that equilibrium between growth and consumer, and 63% of our economy, both locally and nationally, is consumerism. So as you start to shift the spectrum, we still have all the people that aren't working making six-figure incomes. They just now are spending so much money on housing and transportation that they can no longer support small businesses in the local economy. And it makes a huge difference. It makes an enormous difference to the total vibrancy, growth, and thriving of any economy of any size. And so often, that disparity in resources plays out economically in a way that can continue to be self-fulfilling. And we have to have a good spread of economic incomes and resources in retail for all varieties of economy if we're going to continue to maintain a good growth and a good vibrant area.
1,000%. And here's the problem. Both you guys are right. With new people sprinting here, they're cannibalizing the limited inventory that we have in this market, which is then pushing folks that are on the financial margin away from the epicenter of employment. And as they get pushed away from the epicenter of employment, they're determining, is it worth my time to drive to the city to take this $15 an hour job, or do I do something completely different? So a lot of these small businesses that are like, oh my gosh, all these wealthy people are coming here, it's great for my business. The collateral damage of the wealth moving here is they're taking the housing stock away from the people that will work the $15 an hour jobs, which are paramount to the small business owner's success, which is the point Beckham's making here.
Yeah.
We're losing the middle and lower middle class and upper lower class that are staffing the small businesses. And the folks that I see that are in the most precarious predicament, I'll get out of y'all's way here, are the folks that rely on a lot of people at that entry price point for labor.
Interesting, our unemployment ticked up just a touch. We're still better than any national or state averages. Second,
3% or something, or 4%?
I would have to look. I want to say we're at 2.6 here in the car footprint.
I can tell you here. Neil Williamson would know too. He's watching the program right now. I want to
say we're 2.6.
It is 2.6 exactly.
Second biggest loser in jobs. Hospitality and service industry. So pandemic ended, restaurants opened, they brought back staff as best they could. Many staff had moved on, and it got harder and harder to hire. If you're talking to local business owner restaurateurs, one of their continuing ongoing nightmares is they can't put staff in front of clients.
Nursing shortage too, right?
Not done. And how many of these wealthy people are going to have bad service or no service at a restaurant before they stop going? And if you were to track the gains in this, let's just talk about restaurants in Charlottesville, lots of return to work and gains post-pandemic, way fewer restaurants. And not many prospects for them reopening.
1,000%. In fact, more closing soon. Closing soon.
Yeah.
Riverside Village just got a waiver from Albemarle County Board of Supervisors because part of their neighborhood development plan was that they would have 8,000 square feet of commercial and retail, and they can't fill it. They can't fill 8,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. And so they actually got a waiver to reduce the square footage of commercial and retail they have to have so that all that empty space next to Grit Coffee no longer prevents them from continuing their development.
What do you think, Lee?
Well, I'm curious if I agree with all of Quentin's point. I'm curious if you think that's the primary factor of why we're having trouble finding workers for $15 an hour, as you say.
I think we can't find labor because we don't have the housing for it that's affordable to offset, to say, here's $15 an hour. $15 an hour is 30 grand. $15 an hour is 30K, right?
Yep.
What housing can accommodate a 15?
I agree with that. I would say, has the increase in housing unaffordably tracked with the drop in available, like, workers not working those $15 an hour jobs? I would say that the drop in workers has been more. I don't know what the other effects are, and I guess that's what I'm asking.
It's
What
sort
are,
of
what are the other?
I would tell you it's an economic Krebs cycle. You're familiar with the Krebs
Yeah.
cycle. So is it directly there?
Thermodynamics.
Michael Beckham, hello. We were just talking about you.
Is it directly there? No, it's just 2 steps away. So if I am the $15 an hour worker and I can't even find an apartment that's 3 bedrooms for me, my other half, and our 2 kids, I have to move further away. Now, in addition to the rent that's hard for me to make already, I've added a transportation cost.
Right.
Now we've come to what we call brittle poverty. So not poor, I'm working, I'm paying all my bills, but I'm one bad transmission failure, I'm one car accident, one needing to replace 4 tires away from not being able to make that trip. As we continue to make housing unaffordable where the jobs are, and as we push people out, eventually you have to pay more money to get them in. We're now in what we call the wage price spiral of inflation. And in an economy our size, that's not a supportable continuing thing.
Because there's not enough customers.
There's
That's
not
what
enough,
he's saying.
There's not enough staff, there's not enough customers, there's not enough housing.
Yeah.
And even if there is housing and there is customer base, if you don't have accessibility of the employees to get there and serve it,
Right.
that business dies. When was the last time you took the train from Waynesboro?
Never.
Oh, there isn't one.
Yeah. Right? Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think about at night right there. Because we service small
This
businesses.
is what you think about at
I
night?
do. I know. It's so heavy. I know. My wife is like, stop thinking about this. This is
I
gonna
need
keep you
her
up at
phone
night."
number. There's got to be a way to change what you think about at night.
Help me. Please help me. I talk to people professionally about this. Throw this to you here. If some of our favorite places do not get the staff to keep their business alive, they're going to have to pivot in some capacity. Some are going to close. Others are going to figure this out. Maybe the way you figure it out is what Brazos is doing at Barracks Road, where it's more pick up at the window like they did at Ix, where initially the plan was going to be more table service. Now it's more pick up at the window because they don't have the front of the house staff to do the table service here. So like, what's the role of the technology? What's the role of the innovation? Is it impossible or unfair to say that a small business owner who's just trying to keep their lights on is going to be able to pivot to kiosks and AI and ChatGPT and mobile apps and curbside pickup? Or is that what we got to do?
I think part of this is that, yeah, I mean, if they can't find the staff for the front of house, that is certainly an issue. But maybe they're just also serving what customers have now wanted, right? As Quentin said, post-pandemic, not everybody wants to go out and just sit in a restaurant, right? They're either too busy or they don't want to bother with it, and so they would prefer pickup. So, I think it's two-sided coin, right? Like if the customers aren't asking for it, then that's part of the business that you're not able to serve, and that's why it's hard for you to be able to pay your wait staff what it takes to be able to retain them.
I agree, except I don't think it's even. Consumers determine the services we offer, but the services offered determine where consumers go. And I think in this particular case, it's more of services offering than it is consumer driven. There's a lot of things that are very consumer driven. Most of the changes in real estate and how we practice as brokers and agents, very consumer driven right now. And I think if anybody in real estate is watching, don't miss the boat that it's all about the consumer. Because that is the thing that if you want to be ahead of the curve, you've got to be focusing on. But there's also there's a derivation of what kind of consumer we create by what's available.
Yep.
Restaurants right now are full, but we have 45% of the restaurants we used to.
There you go.
Yeah.
And the dining room shrunk.
And the dining
Since
room
COVID.
shrunk.
Yeah, there it is right there.
So, and was that a market shift that needed to happen? Maybe the
Locally-
pandemic just pushed that along.
Locally, probably yes, you would say.
But it also means that for that earner slice, jobs diminished, and we no longer have an opportunity for those people. There has been some shifting. There have been people in those slices that found better work. things they like. There's been the teachers that have gone to tutoring. It's better work. They don't have to deal with all the BS that it means to be a public school
Bureaucracy.
teacher right now, where everything is a hassle and you got to watch every word you say and be super, super careful all the time. I would hate to work in that environment. It would feel like being an elected official.
Tough to find even elected officials now. Nobody wants to serve on the school board.
That's
So there has been some shift, but I would wager that people that you're looking to hire don't have that hard of a life in the job that you're trying to hire them into. I mean, they have to tolerate you, and so we know there's that. But
Lee's very likable.
But-
I was about to say, I would ask you to.
Your beautiful
ask
wife
someone-
says, "Great shirt, Lee."
Yeah, she
Oh,
pick it out.
Alex.
She's
Yeah.
watching right now.
Yeah.
Judy Savage Jones says, "I'm watching." She's a retired KWA.
Judy,
Kim Cornelia Spitz Miller. Michael Beckham, hello. Michael Sargent, hello, and welcome to the program. Got the weekly newspaper on the program, watching the show here. So, gentlemen, I'll throw this to you here. You feeling pretty good about where we're heading for the back half of the year? We're May 19th, right? We're at the halfway marker.
Man.
Are you feeling, this is where the bear sometimes comes out. I think he's playing the role of the bull, Quentin Beckham.
I mean, he dared say the R word, so he's even the bull isn't feeling too bullish.
Are we talking our word now with teams, with our teams and the people we encounter? Or as people say, Central Virginia, UVA, Charlottesville, protected from the R word here? $1.2 billion defense sector yearly impact, $6 billion UVA impact on Central Virginia. We don't know what CAR is. I would love to see what CAR's impact is on Central Virginia.
I would also tell you that these numbers you're throwing out, although accurate, mostly, are also just potential impact on the economy, not actual. And we still, I still want to push back that large sums of money
Yeah?
are not good indicators of how a local economy is going to do, because what happens mostly with large sums of money, they sit there becoming larger sums of money. They don't fuel or provide any economic or social utility. They sit there doing a next to nothing. In fact, that's the problem when you have too much of a gap. It's not that rich people take over and spend too much, it's that they don't spend enough, because they're still only consuming one household's worth of goods. It could be a big household, square footage wise, but they don't power the economy in the same way as middle class do, and lower middle class when you provide opportunity for them to participate in the lower
So based on that
in
take,
the local economy.
based on that take, you're a little nervous then,
I'm not nervous because I am not surprised.
okay?
When I used to see patients and a 75-year-old came in with atrial fibrillation, I was not surprised. I didn't give him a big card and a slice of cake like he'd achieved something. But, there are things that shouldn't be surprising. If you want local business and small business to thrive, you must have a thriving middle class to go visit them. And the longer we let disparities happen, that's bad. Am I happy that we're going to go into a recession? Not necessarily. On the other hand, the economy has really just worked really, really hard. And if you run a marathon, there's a good chance you're in bed the next day, and it's time for us to go to bed. And until that happens, you don't even have an opportunity for a correction, because there's no magic thing. There's no new technology or something that's suddenly going to pump up the economy for the middle class.
Quick sidebar, just a trivia question. Have you ever run a marathon?
No.
Okay.
Neither have I.
But
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I
You did
did-
the
I-
Ironman,
The
right?
Richmond Marathon is an amazing marathon. Anyway,
I did ride 425 miles over 4.5 days on a non-electric bike.
Ooh,
I was about to say, I could do that on an electric bike. Wow, that's
legit.
California?
Nope.
Oh.
No, we went from Burlington, Vermont to Portland, Maine.
Oh, that's pretty. I was going to say that I am also not nervous, but here is my bull hat. I think the local economy and just the United States in general is pretty resilient, so that's why I'm not nervous about us entering in a recession. I do think that there's going to be some attrition in businesses. There's not anything we can do about that. Of all the entrepreneurs, hundreds of entrepreneurs I've met in Charlottesville, they are very resilient, and pivot is the name of the game for small businesses. I think larger businesses have a much more difficult time pivoting, and long-standing businesses like Claiborne, we've been doing the same thing for over a decade. It's much harder to turn that ship because you have these ideas of what the business should be, and you're less likely to pivot. So I think
it's a lot harder now to start a business in 2023 than it was before COVID. I think if you're launching a business in 2023, you have a much more difficult environment locally in Central Virginia than you did in 2019.
I would say that's, I would push back on that and say that if you're jumping off and starting a business as your sole source of income, then that's true of many.
Which is what a business is.
You
If
can
not,
define
then
a
that would be a side hustle.
You can start a business as a side hustle.
Right.
I think if I was a single man starting a business, I was like, cool, I'm just going to start this, and this is going to be my whole source of income.
That's
because
what I
you know
did.
what? I'll eat ramen noodles for a month, and I'll do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
If you're starting a business in your 30s and you already have kids, it makes a lot more sense to start as a side hustle. A lot of businesses that start say, hey, I have a pretty stable job at UVA, and I'm going to start this as a side hustle, and I'm going to determine a point at which this can be my full hustle, if ever. Maybe this will always be a side hustle. And I think with that respect, then it's not as difficult as you're painting it. But if you're saying that, you're framing it and saying you have to start a business and that's going to be your sole source of income, then what you're saying might be true.
For Quentin Beckham specifically, this question's come on the feed from Michelle. Jerry asked the question you asked the other panelists about rates dropping and what that could do to the real estate ecosystem. So here's how I phrased the question to the other ones.
Michelle who?
Michelle Clatterback? Is that right, Michelle? Clatterback? She says this, ask the question that I asked about rates dropping, so I will. This is the question I have. Are you ready for this? If rates drop to the 4s and we get more buyers jumping in the mix, how does that impact things locally?
Rates aren't going to drop to the 4s.
Scotty Moe thinks high 4s by the end of the year.
I would tell you 5s.
Okay.
Although I suppose there's places where they're close enough as to not matter. I would tell you 5s. I think inventory is still going to be the restriction. So even when rates were 2, what was the price? And who could qualify for those houses? And so inventory is still going to be the restriction. And until we start creating inventory at a faster pace than we need it, this is a spiral that's slowing down a little bit, but still spiraling, and certainly not going the other direction. So it will be helpful for buyers when those rates go down. But if there's a limited inventory, there's still a limited inventory. I'm happy with all the signs I'm seeing in the quarterly report. I'm happy about prices coming down. I'm happy that our inventory has doubled, even though the raw number is smaller than we would like it to be. These are all things that are good for the housing market and for our local economy in total in terms of housing, because for most of Charlottesville and the surrounding areas, housing is the big cost and is the big issue. And it is an issue that can not just be expensive by itself, but create others when you have to move further and further away from where you work. Speaks back to resourcing. All of these things for slowing down are, I think, going to make it less difficult for most of our population, and it's still not going to fix the primary issue in that we don't have dense enough housing close to work, we don't have enough development land available, and the process from permit to key is too long.
Quentin Beckham, guys. This comment comes in, and Michelle, you're right. I do know your son from pickleball. Thank you for leaving that comment. Lee, any take that you want to offer on the banking issues of late? Justin Ritter on the show on Wednesday highlighted how some local banks, the publicly traded ones, how their market cap has really shrunk a lot since First Republic and Silicon Valley Bank had their runs. Maybe we talk financing if you want to go down that road. I really want to pick your brain, though, on AI, ChatGPT, and your take on something in that space, because I know you have something to offer there.
Love that. Yeah, I've been on ChatGPT since its
Does
inception.
ChatGPT scare you, or is this, I mean, let's embrace it, let's rock and roll. Do you want to talk any of those two?
Okay. Financing is a little outside of my area of expertise. I would say in the last year, I think the speculation bubble on technology has burst, and I think maybe that's speculating on what small banks can actually do, and the banking sector does when they have finance resources and where they invest it. I think when you scrutinize it and you look at Silicon Valley Bank, and it's like, oh gosh, like why did they do this and why did they do this? I don't know. Maybe was it just a number of unfortunate issues that happened to them that weren't practices that the other banks weren't doing anyway. And I think the banking sector is hopefully adapting and thinking about those practices, but it's not surprising that when there is a catastrophe like that the market cap will shrink. It happened with tech last year, I think, when
Bank of the James, Virginia National, Blue Ridge Bank. Look at their market cap. All has diminished quite a bit since these runs of these big banks. Q, I don't know if you want to touch this at all.
I think we forget that banking is an inherently fragile industry. And so a lot of what seemed like secure, safe investments 4 years ago, it's no longer true. And so depending on the length and the amount of investment regional banks have, that's problematic. I think if we do have, yes, we're seeing market cap shrinks, and I don't think that's done yet. I think if you're looking for what's going to be the next problem for a regional bank, it's a lot of the commercial crash. We have a lot of mostly empty buildings that are loans that are held locally by regional banks, and the ability to remortgage those is really, really limited right now in a way that landlords and building owners can manage.
Justin said the same thing. That's a very good point.
So if you're looking for, yes, we need to continue fighting inflation, and the Feds probably are not going to raise the rate again no matter what they say, but they have to keep saying that so that we don't worry too much or spend too much. If you're looking for the next thing that would be dramatic, outside of a new war or participation in some sort of police action, it would be that regional banking crisis.
Lee Elberson?
I don't have anything to add to that. I was already thinking about ChatGPT.
I can't wait. I see the wheels turning.
Yeah. So ChatGPT, I think, is just the most popular of language models. There have been language models around for a decade. I think what has happened here has happened before. I think when the idea of autonomous vehicles first hit the public eye, there was many people of our generation that were surprised that it came as fast as it did, because it sounded like it was the stories of science fiction. Wow, we're going to have these self-driving cars. Well, self-driving cars have kind of lost almost all of their market cap. Pretty much everybody but Tesla has removed almost all of their financing in full self-driving. Uber sold off its shares. Cruise has dropped theirs by like 75%. Tesla pulled theirs off the market several times in the last year, and they, I think, are putting it back in a couple of weeks, they say. But I think when a new technology hits, you hit that cycle where all the investors are in. It's very exciting, and it's scary because it's going to disrupt the market, right? Where are all these Uber drivers going to go? Now with ChatGPT, you have this language model that it essentially can prepare answers to questions of varying degrees of difficulty, right? If I want to come on this show and I say, hey, how do I answer these really complicated questions about real estate? It can give me answers on a very high level. If I ask it for something about localized, the car report, it doesn't know anything about that. It's based on very old data, so it can give you very high level answers, but what it's not going to do is it's not going to be able to really add much about anything that's going to require empathy, which is like equity and inclusion and things of that lens. So I think The jobs that it will displace are going to be jobs that were probably going to be displaced anyway. Those sort of jobs are jobs that need to be automated. So, for instance, for the tutoring industry, if parents are going to ask us questions about, hey, what's a timeline for testing? What's this? That's stuff that I have to answer all the time that any computer can answer. If they're going to tell me, hey, my student's ADHD and really doesn't like this teacher, what's the best strategy? That's going to require some empathy. And so I think that those sort of, any job that requires empathy is not going to be easily replaced by a language model. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Why, just out of curiosity, self-driving cars, you brought them up. Why the lack of momentum, you think? Take Cruise to be specific.
Much harder problem than they anticipated. I think the initial piece of being able to look at standard situations on a highway and say, we're going 70 miles an hour, look far enough ahead and tell me where I need to turn and stay inside my lane and slow down and be careful for, just be careful for the cars around us. Anything in a city or a complicated intersection, imagine an intersection that the lanes change, such as hydraulic, right? You're at that intersection, it's like they move over when you get to Trader Joe's by almost an entire lane. A car doesn't know that. There's no lines, there's nothing to guide it. Anything that's abnormal, which is a lot of our intersections, it's really difficult to understand all those permutations, and a vehicle has to take liability. When you sign Tesla's their end-user license agreement, if the car gets into an accident when you're under full self-driving, if it's level 4, it's the car is responsible. Now, if they back it off to level 2 or 3, the human is responsible. So, if I have to drive anyway, why on earth
would I pay for it?
Why would I pay for it, right? And so I think that it was a harder problem to solve, and it didn't completely for Uber, if it's not going to replace the driver, then what is the point? It's making it a little bit easier. Quentin probably knows a lot more about this than I do, and so I would love to hear his take. That's a great take.
I was stuck looking up empathy just to get a definition of it. So you lost me after that.
I think Quentin has empathy.
It's in a jar.
I love Quentin. He's the best.
He's very empathetic, man. Judah's laughing over here.
I think everything you said is correct, and I think part of why it's failing is because it just didn't live up to the professed dream on the side of the consumer.
Tesla said we'd have full self-driving cars by 2020.
I had a Model S Plaid with all the full self-driving features, signed up for it, signed up for the beta, which I had briefly before my driving score went too low, and they took it away from me because I accelerate too quickly, apparently.
Is that true?
That's true.
Really? Wow.
That is absolutely true. And it was downright frightening. And so I think...
what? The car driving by itself?
Much of it. So on a freeway where it's doing stuff much like Volvo has done for years, where it's just basically keeping you in the lane and not running into the car ahead of you. I think that's pretty standard, and a lot of cars are doing that well right now. City driving and coming up to a stop sign, which was fun to play around with, as a practical matter, I don't know that AI for driving cars is anywhere near a place where it can respond and be good where non-AI cars exist. It's just not going to work unless everybody's on some sort of pattern and software that is uniform, because humans are amazingly ununiform. And much like swinging a bat, we do things in a way that is subconscious as opposed to conscious, and that's impossible to train. I can't tell you how to ride a bike. I mean, I can, but I can't in a meaningful way explain to you how to ride a bike. I need to put you on and give you some colloquialisms and shove you along and then let go when you're not noticing, and your body figures it out. A lot of driving is that sort of reflexive stuff, and so to write it out in code and get a system that responds appropriately is just really, really difficult. and we're not living up to the sci-fi dreams that the consumer wants.
Do we see AI?
Real quick sidebar there. Interesting
Yeah.
you mentioned the riding a bike thing. Actually, I do know somebody that wrote How to Ride a Bike. At University of Maryland, he wrote an entire thesis. It was an 88-page thesis on how to ride a bike. And the complexities of trying to explain something that you have to experience and how you take it for granted. It's like, oh, just take balance. What is balance? Is it left-right balance? Is it this forward balance?
And why is it better when I'm moving than when I'm going slow? Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, you explain concepts like momentum. So anyway, yeah, I think that's an interesting.
I think a lot of things, I think a lot of life actually, more so than we're willing to admit. By the time we explain how to do it, that knowledge is no longer transferable. And so, children, toddlers, need to fall about 10,000 times. And that's how the small part of your brain figures out balance. Is it was like, oh, this doesn't work, that hurt, I probably shouldn't do that again. And then the next time they come across a different obstacle, they try the next thing, that doesn't work. We're more cataloging failures and learning how to avoid them, which is a great Warren Buffett phrase, by the way. Just, there's no secret to doing well, just avoid failing. And that's a lot of how we learn. And we're in a society that expects zero failures. So we're expecting self-driving cars and healthcare to be perfect.
Right.
And they're never going to reach that level of productivity.
How about AI in real estate? You thought about that? Where we'll see it?
There's a lot of ChatGPT work going on in real estate that is very, very effective. And I think there are ways that we're already using algorithms to better put things in front of consumers.
Supplements your job, right?
But, there's this argument going on between a agent-enabled technology versus a technology-enabled agent. And I think a lot of where we're seeing this shift to consumerism is the power of the consumer is that it's no longer about the agent. And I'm sorry, agents, it's not about you. It really is about the consumers. Many of you are amazing, but it's still about the consumers. And that relationship between a technology-enabled agent to meet all of the big circle of things that clients really, really need in a real estate transaction.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that hits on something important. A lot of the doom scrolling that happens in AI is like your job is going to be replaced, right? Everybody's like, hey, I've heard this tutoring platform is all AI. I think we need to think about it as it should be meant to supplement what we do and empower us all do better instead of it's going to replace your job. Because yeah,
I'm still a fan of Stephen Hawking. Like the biggest threat to humanity is AI.
I mean, the godfather of AI at Google just quit. I mean, we talked about this, Judah. He told everybody in America, he's like,
I wouldn't say he's the godfather, but yeah, he created. He's worried that
he's one of the forefathers.
He's worried that
assuming
artificial intelligence is one of the questions that was asked by that AI was, will you consider my feelings when asking me what to do? Right? That's an alarming question. Now, did it actually have sentience, or is it just something that it knew would invoke a reaction amongst us? Right? You program this thing to just say things randomly. Maybe Quentin's car one time avoids an accident that no other human could have avoided, but maybe it doesn't know the difference between somebody walking across an intersection with a phone and somebody walking across an intersection without a phone, right? I think that there's so many different levels to this, and so I think some of the concerns raised by the Google AI programmer were a little bit alarmist.
You thought alarmist?
Isn't that the trolley lever experiment? You're in a trolley, you've got control of the lever, and how many people are going to die is up to you, but somebody's going to die, and who do you choose?
There's many different variations of the trolley experiment. Wait, under what context are we using the trolley experiment for?
I don't know, I just went straight to apocalyptic AI.
Okay.
And how do we...
okay, so...
And Sarah Forge,
feelings, and are they made up feelings, or are they real feelings?
Well, now that's another question for specifically how you want AI to make decisions, right? So...
if you're in the car, does it hold the driver primary no matter what? Mm-hmm. At what point does it sacrifice the driver to save the children crossing the street?
There's four people in a car, and there's somebody going across the street. Either it has to drive the car off of the cliff and kill all 4 people inside, or it has to kill the pedestrian. What should the AI do? Right, like that's part of the question. Okay, well, maybe you save the 4 people. Now what if it's just 1 and 1, right? Or what if it's 1 and 2, right?
Is the AI not primarily responsible to its owner?
So, and here's where humanity comes
Is it
in.
not?
All of us hearing this
You're
story,
paying for the AI.
Sure. Okay, now
I want a way to achieve both.
Oh.
And
I don't
sitting
think we
behind the
can do
wheel,
that.
we immediately believe we achieve both. We don't like these parameters that it's one or the other.
What's the 3 things you use the phrase often in remodeling? It can be fast, cheap, and what? What are the 3 things you can do, Judah?
Fast, cheap, and bad.
No, quality, speed, and low price.
Yeah, you can have quality, speed, and low price with a project. You can pick 2 of them,
Yeah.
but not get all 3. Isn't that the same thing with the AI?
this,
I mean,
I
how
think-
can
I
the
forgot
AI?
there's some principle that like you can have 3 things and you can only choose 2. I forgot what it is.
Right. I mean, are we asking too much of the AI?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, this is going to get worse, this conversation. We're all going to be like news cycled to death when it comes to this topic. We realize that, right?
We got this a lot. So my wife bought a Tesla early this year, and
Yay.
some
Which one?
She bought a Model Y.
Okay.
So
It's Wanda.
Sort of
It's right
the
out front.
hybrid. So yeah, it's right out front.
Okay.
Her name is the car's name is Wanda.
Wanda. Hello,
people
Wanda.
keep telling me when they ask me about full self-driving, they say, "I heard a Tesla killed a person," and I say, "Yeah, that's probably the full self-driving has probably killed many people."
Was your response, I heard a Chevy killed a person?
Yeah,
I heard a
well,
Ford
or
killed a
just
person?
like statistically speaking, humans still are the primary cause of like
Tesla
per capita
deaths.
than full self-driving.
Sure,
So
of course.
I think it's progress, but it's it's probably related to why a lot of people get stressed out about airplanes. It's like, oh well, I'm not the one driving, right? Like when it's in somebody else's or something else's hands, it's different than when you're the person driving, right?
Yeah.
Once I get on that plane and sit down, my stress just melts.
Well,
mean,
that's
yeah.
the cocktail in
Because
front
I've
of you.
done
That's the
everything-
drink in front of you.
I have done everything in my control. I've done my job. My work is done. I don't have anything else to do until we get off the plane.
Nora
I love
Gaffney, welcome to the program. She's watching the show. That might be the what's the drink you choose on the airplane? Is it a Jacket Coke, or just probably bourbon on the rocks?
Quentin
knowing you.
likes
He's
just
straight bourbon.
He doesn't
In the
like
morning,
anything.
if it's a morning flight, I have a screwdriver.
Oh, screwdriver's great.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Usually a
Some
glass of
vitamin
wine is
C,
good for me.
You know.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. When you have the Bloody Mary, it's like I'm actually eating vegetables here.
And if you're really nice, they'll give you your bourbon drink and set down some unopened bottles so that you can just self-serve or take them off the plane with you.
Do we still have time left on the show?
Plenty of time.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to frame.
have plenty of time.
We talked about this a little bit ahead
Love
of time.
you guys.
I had a client this week pose a question to me and say, my daughter's very hardworking, but have you noticed that...
Oh God.
Why are you already upset about this? I feel like this is a good question. It
I like
opens
this
up a lot of
question.
good-
We
Okay.
talked about this in the
So
pre-production
she
meeting.
Said, yeah, she said, does it seem like millennials and centennials and the younger generation has a different work ethic than we do? And I thought that was a good way to phrase it because it's not like they have a
Worse or better?
Well, I think the implication was it's a worse work ethic.
Okay.
But she said different. She was very diplomatic about it, and she said her daughter was very hardworking. And I said, yes, I think it's different.
I know why.
And I propose that there are 3 primary factors in my mind. This is my opinion. I think number one for the sake of this show is affordable housing.
Oh.
The American dream has changed a bit. It's not like you will work, you will get a house, you will have a family. Having a family, that much has changed. Divorce rates are higher. I think so. Affordable housing, number one. I think number 2, part of working hard 40 or 50 years ago was, hey, you know what? I can go to college. This college degree will earn me more. College degrees are more ubiquitous now than they've ever been, and so it doesn't mean the same. You graduate from college and you're working a $15 an hour job.
Plus the debt.
So I think those two factors. The third one, you're going to be super shocked that I say this. I think social media has changed the work ethic, and I think it's
When I hear something crazy on that,
it's a broad term. Anything from YouTube to TikTok.
I think it has changed the work ethic.
I think keeping this to things that they have studied and they have found. People who use social media more are more inclined to overspend on things that are not related to saving and saving up for a house. So I think, yes, the work ethic has changed because what they're working for is different than what we were working for when we were a kid. Those are my claims, and I know Quentin is going to refute all of them. So.
That's not true.
Okay.
We have like 8 minutes left. I'm not even sure I can get into this with you.
You go anywhere you want.
I also
Do you agree with any of my points? Let's start there.
I agree that things have changed. I do believe social media is the devil. I missed some of it because I was posting and answering a text.
While doing the show.
Well played.
I missed
While
a little
doing
bit
the
of what
show.
you
I
had
think
to say.
social media is the devil while I was using it.
Yeah.
And I also just believe generationally goals have changed based on availability. So as we've moved from becoming like the industrial manufacturing capital of the world over the last 60 to 100 years to a really service-oriented industry, we've really focused people on experiences versus stuff. And so you're seeing a lot more value placed on the opportunity to have experiences versus stuff, something that I don't necessarily disagree with. And we've moved, as we've limited the upward mobility of generations, every generation a little less available. We have less upward mobility than the United Kingdom, a nation that still has a aristocracy. Then you have to find other things to do. You have to have a different goal if you realize that certain doors have just been shut to you that have nothing to do with you. And so you have to find different goals. So I resist the notion that there's this generation of coffee shop misanthropes that are just lazy and have no drive. There are coffee shop misanthropes that are just lazy and have no drive. They're just not necessarily an entire generation, nor are they limited to that generation. And we have to be realistic about, if you just graduated college last year, what are your opportunities for the next 10 years? And is the dream of home ownership really available to you in light of interest rates, prices,
No, it's
your
not.
potential
No, it's
wage,
not.
and your student debt?
It's not.
Compared to 50 years ago.
So am I willing to hunker down and save every penny and eat ramen for 10 years so that I can buy a home? Or am I going to take the summer off and go travel?
So it's exacerbating the issue. Yes, you could, but
It is increasing the proclivity. I'm hesitant to call it an issue. It's just the way the world is right now. And so until there is a change where a door opens, I'm not going to be the old guy. I'm not a boomer, but I'm still kind of old. I'm not going to be the old guy trying to push people through a door that's not open.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point. I feel like you're right. When you say it's changed and the negative connotation on, their work ethic is not what mine is, yes, that is true. And I'm saying, it's because you're not working hard enough or you're not trying to do the things that I did. And I guess framing it in, it's so much harder that would I make that same decision now if I was being raised now than I would have 20 years ago? And the answer is probably no. I would.
There's definitely
different
a different relationship between employees and the employer, but that relationship is also different from the employer. We were talking about this before the show started. Who do you know anymore that doesn't work for UVA, that works for one company for 30 years and retires and they take care of them the whole time? Those opportunities are incredibly more limited than they used to be. Mm-hmm. And you're often at a company...
Is that the role of the employer to do now? Does the employer have to do that?
I'm not trying to assign blame.
Yeah.
I'm just identifying that it's assigning blame to a whole generation is wrong when really just the opportunities are different and the way we succeed is different. If there really was the opportunities of the boomer generation, would we have a gig economy? Would side hustle be a thing that everybody's interested in? No, there's a reason these things have changed. And it's not just because of some, timing quirk of what generation you were born into.
I mean, I think social media undoubtedly is influencing this generation. Like, let's cut to the chase. If you can sit in your room in the air condition in front of your phone and talk into a microphone for periods of time and make money, of course you're going to want to do that over being like a lifeguard or a busboy or a waiter or working at Abercrombie and Finch at Fashion Square Mall. Everyone wants to be an influencer. But there was at a time,
probably the detriment of their mental health. But
there was a time though where we said Beavis and Butthead was going to contribute to the fall of older millennials, or The Simpsons, or Mad Libs, or Rolling Stone magazine, or talking on the phone, or instant messenger, or passing notes to kids. And social media is just the newest version of passing notes to your crush in the classroom, or talking on the phone for too long, or spending too much time on AIM, or reading Mad Libs, or Rolling Stone, or watching Beavis and Butthead, or The Simpsons.
Yes,
That's just what social media is.
I think you're unfair. I'm going to disagree with that first.
That's what social media is.
No, I'm going to say that you're not categorizing those things correctly, because when you're passing notes in class, that's something you're actively engaging in.
How's that different than a text message or a direct message or sending someone a selfie?
Not necessarily a text message, although maybe the dopamine hit you get on a text message might be different. But I think social media and TikTok in particular is different because there's an algorithm now driving your behavior. There was no algorithm except for your own thoughts on engaging when you were passing notes in class.
The algorithm was called hormones.
How many times in sixth grade did you write a note that was a deep feeling, fly 6 states away, and hand it to a stranger?
Never.
It's not the same thing. Yes, I understand it has taken the place of a particular
That's what
behavior.
I meant. That's
Taking
the
the
replace.
place.
But it is not.
That's today's behavior.
It is not analogous to the behavior that it subsumes.
A kid is getting in, this is a great topic. So like a 14-year-old is getting up in someone's DMs.
Now I got to look up and know.
You know, as opposed to sending a note saying I have a crush on you. Now I have a crush on you is sending a DM. I have a crush on you. Before it was writing a note or telling your buddy to go tell her that I had a crush on Jessica. Hey, Kevin, will you go tell Jessica I have a crush on her? Now it's getting up in her DMs.
I would separate maybe the communication side, text message and direct messages to another individual that you actively engage with, from viewing like videos that you didn't actively choose to do that. That's I think what TikTok and Reels and a lot of these things are designed is like, you're not choosing it. There's absolutely no
I give you that.
other than you just keep scrolling, and the programs is trying to get you to stay on. It's incentivizing itself to get you to stay on for just a little bit longer.
That's 100%
the difference.
true.
It's addicting in a way that those other things weren't.
I think social media is the aspartame of being social.
You're going to have to put that in 7th grade vernacular.
I mean, like,
I know what aspartame is, and I like the use of it.
Yeah, I think that's the first time on the show. It's
brain cancer.
it does, as well as some liver issues and other, you don't gain weight because your body can't process it, and so you just build up reservoirs of it till you explode. But that being said, often we participate in things that feel like they're actual relationships, and we forget that they're not.
for sure.
And so back when I worked in healthcare, we worked 40-hour shifts and all through the night, and you were working with the same 5 or 6 people for 2 years. You often felt like they were your super close best friend, and you would share personal details that nobody wanted to know because the circumstance that made it feel like a close relationship,
I get that.
and it wasn't. Social media is the same thing. Frequently on social media,
Maybe even a step removed even.
unlike passing a note to somebody that you are stuck with for 9 months, social media creates some of the same things, much like dating apps create some of the same things. And yes, people have learned how to navigate both in ways that are successful for them. But as a general rule, the failure rate is much, much higher. You can watch people post innocuous things on Facebook and get destroyed by 1,000 strangers that I'm wondering, why do you care what this person had to say? And then you have other people that live their life on Facebook that I'm like,
Why are you
living your life on Facebook? Go
Right.
find some friends.
Right.
And that's probably a generational comment.
I don't think that's a generational comment.
But
I think
but
that's reality.
I think there is a social utility to a lot of the media that we use for particular things. Certainly, you know, it exists here. It exists in some of the work that I do. And
I mean,
some of
you're teaching classes at KWA. Who's the agent? The agent that recently led a class for KW agents on social media.
Right.
She had the Facebook cupcakes that she brought to your
she
seminar?
did, and that's
We're not saying
that's
there's no
Courtney.
value
Yeah.
for social media.
Courtney, that's
But
right.
remember that those values are more limited than actual humans.
Yeah.
And so social media is a way to connect with people. It's good for marketing. There's even whole businesses in town that just use social media as a marketing thing, right? There's people that run whole businesses
Heard
around
about that, yeah.
I've heard about those companies too.
Yeah.
You know, most of them get mixed reviews, but I'm willing to give them a shot. And
You have to have a very charismatic leader to be successful.
Thank you very much, Lee Albertson. I've always enjoyed you.
I always feel like when we talk about social media, the social part should be in really, really small type.
I agree with
as
you.
opposed to the media part.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to forget, much like night shifts in an operating room, that person I'm talking to online about really sensitive topics is not Lee, where we have history where I can say incredibly stupid and thoughtless things, and I've slowly in very, very small increments deposited into this account of kindness and grace with him over the years, so that when I do that, I have enough in there to make a big withdrawal and save our relationship. And that is not what has happened on social media.
Agreed.
When I've got 50,000 followers. You don't know 49,950 of those people, and the 50 that you think you know, you don't really know because you mostly know them online.
Well, here's the next thing, and whether we want to admit this or not, this is the early, and Carol Thorpe, you're right. She says social media opens you, exposes you to strangers of the world, passing a note limits you to people you know in your classroom. Where we're at now in social media is so early stage. Very soon, social media is going to be interacting with all the people in your living room, sitting next to you in your couch, having conversations with people that may be technology or images that are actually not people. And I know you think that's scary, but that's going to happen.
Well, I will say this, Jerry. Remember last year, all the rage was the metaverse. And
Metaverse is still a rage. Have you seen Meta's stock since November? Have you seen their most recent
I would say
earnings
the
report?
metaverse, I'm not going to call it a failure, but they've definitely...
We're not even in the first inning. Like, the metaverse hasn't even gotten... The metaverse is in spring training. The season hasn't even started.
Okay.
We're in training camp with
I
the
would
metaverse.
say it's not... my outlook has not changed, that I don't think it's what we think it's going to be. And I think... So TikTok was just banned in Montana, right? Like
Montana.
Just
I despise TikTok. I mean,
Okay.
a social media app that's owned by the Chinese government should scare the bejeebus out of America. In particular,
I don't know if it's if it was owned by if
China
it was owned by
has
an
influence
American
over
company,
ByteDance.
I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be any better.
I disagree.
Why? Why would it be any different?
A communist country has influence over an app that has the most influence over teens in America.
I don't
a communist
think.
country that has beef with America.
Okay, I'm going to say that I don't think that the corporation that owns theirs.
ByteDance.
If it was owned, yeah, I know it's ByteDance. If it was owned by an American corporation, I don't think American corporations have value systems that are any better than the Chinese value systems. Their job is to get you to engage more in that. They're driven by profits. I think it's one of the downsides of living in a capitalistic society is that there's really no moral standard in those types of corporations.
Now I got to look up
I
morals.
could be a naysayer. Well, no, I mean, Quentin, maybe do you?
It's right next to empathy.
You weigh in here. Do you think if it was owned by an American corporation, TikTok would be better? It would be better in some way.
You're not concerned that a communist country has influence over the #1 app teenagers use?
That's
I think
that's not what.
I think that's a
concerns
red herring. I think associating it with the ownership is red herring and where it comes from.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
That's
Then
not,
why
what,
is
that's,
Am-
that's not what concerns me. It concerns me that
Then
it's
why is the
that
American
addictive.
government responding how they're doing? Where the American government is literally saying the communist country has influence over this, so we're going to ban it.
Would we like to make a list of things the American government does that none of us understand?
Touche. Touche.
How big would that list be? How
Pretty
much
damn
time
long.
is left?
Yeah.
Are we upset that it's a communist country, or are we upset that a different kind of country created this social media app that a lot of a whole generation wants to engage in, and it's not ours?
I mean, the communist company,
You know-
this company can control an algorithm that's putting atop of a news feed the Kia Challenge that encourages 13-year-olds to hotwire cars and steal them.
Meta's Instagram encouraged teenage girls to increase
Suicidal-
their suicide rates.
Suicidal
Do you wanna know
and
how many-
diet
That's-
issues
that's
and
what I'm
body
concerned
issues.
with.
How many
It doesn't-
bombers looked up how to build it on YouTube?
100%, 100%.
So
I think I mean, this is a topic for another show. But
if you're
Yeah.
concerned about the effect TikTok is having on the youth of America, your concern about TikTok is wrong. You should be concerned about the youth of America.
Being on
this
smartphones.
is, it's a tool. It's a tool.
you guys,
And if you ban TikTok, but you still support, private gun ownership, you should really think about your psyche. That's also for a whole nother show.
That's a different show.
That's a multi-part series.
that's a week
Yeah.
of shows right there.
Why don't we close on something exciting?
Sure, please. I adapt to you guys.
Can I close on something that was exciting that we did? Also, the shirt.
Yeah.
Festival International and Jazz Fest are both Louisiana festivals based on trying to bring in cultures from all over the world. And I would invite anyone, if you're looking for a time to go engage in a very culture-rich time, skip Mardi Gras in Louisiana and go to Festival International. It happens in April in Lafayette every year. My dad was one of the people who helped found it, and it started in 1987, and they bring people from all over the world for music and artwork, and it's just a great place to be. And I will say that while I was there, saw less people on their phones.
Which is important to Lee.
It's very important to me. It's one of my core values. So that's something exciting that happened to me. What about you, Quentin?
Dune 2 is coming out soon.
Are we going to have a viewing party
we need to rent a
Dune
theater
1?
like we did.
Okay.
I'm very, very excited about that.
He did a
Alamo,
viewing party
right?
for Dune 1. We did it at Violet Crown, I think.
Was it
last
Violet
year.
Crown?
We should
Okay.
do it at Alamo.
It was Violet Crown.
Yeah.
Quentin Beckham, Lee Elberson, you guys are awesome. Sincerely
Thank you
love
for
you
having
guys.
us. Thank you for joining me.
I love doing the show with you guys.
Love being on
can
the
you?
show.
You're on next week, I believe, right?
A week from today, yeah.
Week from today, Quentin Beckham. So this is the show. We have fun. Quentin Beckham, KWA, Lee Elberson, Claiborne, Judah Wickhauer. My name is Jerry Miller. We talk about anything Charlottesville and Central Virginia related to your
Or anything.
anything at all. I know. I love it. The I Love Seville show, guys, in 50 minutes. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everyone. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You guys, come on.
Oh, pollen is killing me.